Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us. And if we would like to start with introductions, I think Psych Coalition could start by introducing themselves and I guess just say your name and what position you are.
Hi guys, my name is Rithi. I'm Psych Coalition's president. I'm a psychology major. I'm a senior. I'm a bio minor. That's about it.
Hi, my name is Megan, and I'm the vice president at PSC. I'm sophomore, and I'm a double major in psych and dance.
You got it, Nicole.
Hey, so I'm Nicole. I am a psychology and criminal justice double major, and I'm currently the secretary for PSC, and I'm a senior.
All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Ricky Rodriguez, PSC treasurer. I'm a junior double major in psychology and political science, and I study public health for my minor.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I'm really glad we could do this collaboration and have you guys join us. Now, if you guys don't mind introducing your name and your position, I'll start. I'm the president for UNCC Psi. I'm currently a grad student studying counseling with a concentration in clinical mental health.
I am Notoria. I am technically the secretary. I major in psychology and minor in criminal justice.
Hey everyone, I'm Ethan and I'm the treasurer and I'm majoring in psychology and minoring in economics.
Hello, I'm Marvine and I am a double major in psychology and anthropology and I am the marketing chair.
Great. Good to see everyone. And then I would like to introduce our beautiful advisors. Dr. Chiarella, if you'd like to say a few words.
Hi, everybody. Just to say, I'm glad to see you all here and glad that we are continuing on with our efforts this semester of getting together. And I'm enjoying every bit of this. So if you have any questions about Psych, I've been sending out lots of emails and just let me know.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. I'm glad you're here. And then Professor Burke.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here too. I'm enjoying these podcast discussions. I think it's really interesting to connect with everyone, bi-weekly. So I'm excited to start today.
Thank you for joining us. Me too. It's kind of got me into podcasts, which is not something I thought I would ever like. Alrighty. So to kick off our discussion, anyone have anything they want to start with? How do you feel about the podcast? Did you like it? Not like it?
I really enjoyed the way that we kind of structured it last time, where we talked about the good things and then we went into it a little bit more critically. My positive takeaways is that even though this is a negative experience, that we can transform it into something that brings us joy. We will have stories from this that will eventually we will like telling each other and that we'll be foisting onto the next generation. So, focusing on that coming joy instead of our current lack of it, I think is a pretty strong takeaway from this podcast. Okay.
I definitely agree. I definitely agree. I found it very interesting just looking at how Psychologist Elizabeth Dunn looked at the awful vacations and the terrible experiences or the interesting experiences as well. And it really goes to show that how fond we are of an experience doesn't designate how we remember it. It's about how important it is to us and how unique it is. And right now we're at a very unique time and it's going to be interesting what we take from it all.
Actually, if I could throw in a little research to that, teaching adolescence and emerging adulthood and adulthood and aging, there's something in a feature of cognitive psychology called the reminiscence bump. And the reminiscence bump is that when you look across your lifespan, if you look at the memories people can recall of their lifespan, the ages they have the most memories from is more or less kind of in their mid to late 20s, early 30s, and some of the research they can distinctly see that bump, right? They're speculating that we go through so many transitions during that time that's why and important transitions, just like you were saying, Ethan, that is why we kind of tend to remember that age period the most. And I like to, when I'm teaching that in class, I like to tease my students and say, so you'll forever remember this class and I'll never have any thoughts of you, right? I'm just giving you crap, but in any case, yeah, I just think that's, interesting to kind of put together again, that idea is, yes, I mean, is it about, I mean, and you've certainly heard this from Professor Burke and her explanations of positive psychology. Is it the happiness, the fondness, the what, but I mean, truly the importance and the impact of what you're experiencing, right?
I'd say probably my favorite takeaway from listening to this that I'm gonna like apply to my daily life is everyone always talks about the positive, like the positive, the benefits from like journaling, like at the end of every day, just like writing down how you're feeling at the time, like what you're thinking about, just for like, so you can draw back to it in the future, and it's good for like emotional catharsis. But I've always found when trying to journal that at the end of the day, sometimes I don't know, I might not want to confront certain things about how I'm feeling in the day or something like that, and I'll be ignoring it. So I'll sit down to write in my journal and I'll be like, I really have nothing to say, or I have nothing I want to talk about. So what I took away from this is the idea of like goal journaling. Like even if you have nothing to say, you should always have some goals, something that you're pursuing at the time. And if you look back at that, a couple months later and you say, look at all these things from what I was trying to accomplish, look at how much I actually did accomplish. And that's something that can like benefit your outlook and your perspective in the future.
I liked how the charitable giving was made more actionable. We always hear about giving to others, is beneficial to ourselves. But as we saw, the researcher was saying how, she was pretty much called out by her tax accountant for not giving as much as he thought she should based on her own research. And that led to her asking more targeted questions about what kind of giving actually gives back to you, makes you happy. And keeping that in mind, knowing to give to charities that we can clearly envision what's going on with the money, whether it is coats being bought for children in our area, or it is food for homeless families in this particular place. Those kind of things lead to those changes in the brain that give us direct happiness, and knowing that, I think, empowers us to do it more. And so I really liked that being an actionable point from this.
I think what's interesting too, and not to jump into the what's missing or to be the more, hopefully it's okay if I just jump into the more critical part. So I get really like, when I hear happiness, because I teach positive psych and students come in, they're like, oh, it's happyology. I want to know how to be happy. And it's like, happiness is fleeting, right? And I know she talked about that with material purchases. What's interesting with experiences is that research shows whether or not the vacation is 2 to 3 days or 7 to 14 days, it doesn't matter. You actually can enjoy the vacation the same if it's 2 to 3 days or 7 to 14. It doesn't matter the length of time. And in fact, it's the last day of your vacation that you remember the most. And so that kind of also depends on how you remember it. Is it a good last day? Did it rain or was it sunny? And anyway, so I think what it really comes back to is the meaning. And she mentioned that even material gifts, right? Like you can have, I think, what did she say? Little doses, but I wrote it down because I thought it was so, little doses more frequently. And I think that goes back to meaning with material purchases too. It's not so much, is it going to make you happy, but did somebody you really love give that to you? Or did you think of something that, when you bought those pair of shoes made you feel better inside as a person, or, whatever the case may be. I think it almost goes back to meaning. Anyway, that was a lot of thoughts jumbled into one, but she kept saying happiness. And I think the problem is that happiness is fleeting. And so when we're constantly looking for more and more happiness, like the hedonic treadmill, that's where the problems begin.
Yeah, I agree with you. I kept wondering when they were going to say fulfillment. Like where's this big word that we've all heard constantly? And, in college, like it's it's fulfillment that we should be seeking, which is based on meaning, right? So, yeah.
Yes,
I agree.
Exactly.
I find that point really compelling too, because it's like you said, a lot of people just want to know, like, what's the formula? Like, what things can I do to just be happy? And a lot of people are disappointed by the answer that it's really like, to me personally, it has a lot to do with being able to just like celebrate little victories. Like it said, like little doses. You have to know to like be able to appreciate little good, like positive things that happen to you, and like translate that into your version of, like you said, fulfillment or happiness. But it's not like one or two big things you can just do. It has a lot to do with your perspective on what happens in your day to day and how you're recording your successes.
Yeah, I really like that you're talking about recording successes, because I kind of got hung up on that. Even with her stories, it was about storytelling, and you need other people in your lives to do that. And you need those people who you've shared those experiences with. The way that she changed her, her vacation into something that was terrible into something that she wants to revisit is because of storytelling, and through storytelling with friends. And so, I like this idea of journaling, because that helps a lot of people who are isolated right now.
I have to throw out another mention of research that if you are all into that, just to say that James Lang has for a long time been doing a lot of research. Gosh, I want to say I started reading his work, I want to say in like early grad school, so mid 90s at least, of how much writing influences your thinking, right? I'm pretty sure his research is behind kind of those ideas of what we tell you in class in terms of even writing notes versus typing notes, if you can avoid some of that and that sort of thing. But I believe as a clinical or counseling psychologist by training. So it's just really interesting in terms of, all that he is bringing to the table in terms of what writing can do for your emotions, cognitions, processing, and all of that. And I have to admit, I kind of get lazy about writing at the end of the day. I feel like I've been writing emails and reports and all kinds of things all day long. So in a way, the last thing I want to do is write, some of my, any more of my thoughts or processes down. But I mean, it really does. It's really profound in terms of the differences you can see that are made. So this just, and Ricky, kind of like you're talking about too, it doesn't have to be any kind of perfect writing about this. I mean, just jotting thoughts, I think, can go a long ways, and especially just to get you started.
Yeah, and she even mentioned in the podcast, she called it materializing, which didn't necessarily require writing things down, but it was just having a tangible and she said mentally visible, like concrete visual image of what it is you want to accomplish. For me personally, I think, like, I know for me, and we were just talking about this, that writing things down makes it like kind of like encodes it for me. But the way she described it is you can kind of manipulate your the goal-oriented areas of your brain to be what's a word, to like increase your motivation simply from materializing, not even necessarily writing it down. I'm curious what you all would think of that.
Yeah, what's you all's version of materializing? That, I mean, to me, my inclination would be, I want to tell somebody, number one, all right, like I'm going to call my mom. That's a mom thing. Or that's a Katie thing, or, I'll save her, not that I'm saying different things to different people, but, the particular things you want to explore and savor with different friends or people in your life. And I mean, I'm also thinking I'm more inclined to just like audio record my thoughts so I can play them back and hear them. I think I'm more auditory in some ways than I am writing. Writing just feels like work to me. So I think I need to materialize more orally.
That's funny. That was actually my thought process, is I always have a hard time writing things out because it feels like I'm doing homework. So I actually like to talk it out, like to materialize it. Like I'm a planning type person, so I'll just like talk to my brother and be like, hey, plan this out for me. What should I say? What should I do? How can I get there? I feel like having someone, and then they can help you remember it as well, because well, he's my family, so he might be like, hey, how's that plan going, or have you checked in on that? I feel like for me that's a little easier, but even like writing it down in a calendar or something might be helpful too.
Want to jump in with a little more research, but Maria-Carla, maybe you can help me think of the name Penn.
Oh, Penny Baker.
Thank you.
I was thinking of too. Yes. Lang is more the cognitive guy. Penny Baker, University of Texas.
Yeah.
In the writing. Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you.
I love their research because it's all about like, and I think so for so long they were looking at writing, but now they're finding that talking to a friend or a trusted other is actually more beneficial than writing it down in a journal. And that like, it's because I think you feel more validated and you feel heard. And because I materialize both ways. I journal like consistently. I'm a constant journaler. Since I was, oh gosh, in second grade, I wrote down that my crush was named Michael, you know, so like I've been like journaling for years. And, but now, you know, I also realized, and not to get political, I won't, you know, mention too much, but after the election, you know, occurred, it wasn't until a friend called me on the phone, and it wasn't until she said something that I was like, oh my gosh, it hit me. It hit me then, you know, and talking through it, I was like, oh my gosh, you know, and I all of a sudden had all these emotions. And so I think sometimes too, like talking out loud can kind of help you feel, you know, or help you understand how you feel, because before then it just didn't hit me, if that makes sense. So I think even for good things, it helps to talk to other people.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I was going to say, I feel like I materialize things a lot by talking too, especially if it's like an idea or concept or like an emotion or something, and then I talk about it to someone and they can help me like kind of develop the idea further, or like dive deeper into like why I feel the way I do or something like that. And then it kind of like holds me accountable to like get to the bottom of it kind of, or to like fully, I guess, explain the idea, if that makes sense.
I think that's actually a really good point of like the benefits of talking about something with somebody is it kind of makes you I don't know, when you're talking to someone else, you feel like, I don't want to call it pressure, but there is an inclination to kind of like unearth things that you may not have done on your own. Like if you were just like, writing for me is a personal experience. It's like you with yourself. And some people, like I said, I'm guilty of this too, that you might not unearth a certain thought or go down a certain rabbit hole unless you're talking to someone else, and it kind of makes you think. Like you said, they ask you, well, why do you feel that way? And that might not be something you'd answer honestly unless you were talking to them or to someone else.
It was interesting that some of the research that they talked about was that when we talk to strangers, that often it puts us in a better mood. You know, we're forced to, I guess, put a better face forward, and that actually ends up us being happier. I think during the pandemic, we're all missing that, but we are lucky in that we live in an area. I've lived in many different areas, and they're not all like this, where you talk to people in the grocery store line. There are places that does not happen. You will be looked at like you are crazy. But at least here you can, and I think that more people are they're starting to do that again. I'm seeing, even though we're 6 feet apart, we're still turning to each other now and talking while we're waiting in line. And I think that we can embrace that. That's another actionable point from this podcast, is we can start engaging again with each other whenever we have those opportunities, realizing how much benefit it does bring us.
I was talking to my roommate about that like a similar topic, that people, it seems like everyone you talk to when in this pandemic, that so a lot of people feel like, you know, in a rut, kind of like a sense of monotony, but nothing's going to change or nothing's going to be done until you do something, you know what I mean? Like it sounds obvious, but like, you know, like you said, like going out in public has been kind of dodgy for a little bit. Like not everybody wants to talk, or there's a kind of a sense of separation between you and other people. But that's not really going to change until people individually decide, that's not what I want anymore. You know, I want to talk to people, I want to interact. So like just that idea that nothing's going to be done until, you know, you make that change. Why wait for someone else, you know?
this kind of goes back to like something that we talked about earlier about being grateful for like the little things in your life. So I do think with the journaling aspect that it's important to maybe list out maybe 3 things that you're grateful for, because I learned that in positive psychology, and it actually really helped raise your sense of self and also your how you're feeling, like your emotions and your mood.
Yeah, that probably
I saw
definitely. Go ahead.
sorry to interrupt. I was gonna say I saw we just had some new people join. I didn't know if we wanted to like allow that for input if that's what they joined for, or if not, we could just keep talking. Either way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Anyone feel free to add in at any time. I know I sent out the Zoom link was messing up, so I had someone send out a correct. So anyone who's joined or is currently in here, anytime you want to add to the discussion, we're just talking about things at the moment that we liked about the podcast. Which I'll continue it if you guys don't mind. There was one part where I think they mentioned if you have like a positive conversation, then you feel more positive. And I don't remember it exactly, but it was something like that. And it made me think of the phrase like fake it till you make it. And there's a other phrase where it's fake it till you become it. And it's kind of like the idea of like the more that you do it, the more it becomes a part of you. And so even if it's celebrating the little victories or journaling your goals or something that you're happy about, I feel like if we focus more positively, we'll feel more positively.
I think the flip-flop back all over the place. One critical point I have is, they did talk some about these small hits you can get from buying yourself material things, and we're all doing a lot more online shopping than we did before. And so I think that that's a very easy thing to do. It's a whole lot easier than talking to strangers in a grocery store line, or calling someone up and reminiscing about things. It's very, very easy. It's very convenient. It's available 24 hours a day. But there was nothing. I think there's going to be a danger there of a lot of shopping addiction. I think that's what's, when the pandemic is over, our desire to get those little hits is going to continue.
I know for me, during like the normal semester, I would get that kind of like positive boost, like through just like going to Pete's before I went to study at the library. I would just go get like whatever cold brew I liked, whatever latte I wanted that day or whatever. And that was like, what's the word? Like it would give me positivity, but then I'd look at my declining balance at the end of the semester and I'd be like, oh man, like that really accumulated. So it was like, maybe you need to find like something else, or I don't know. But one thing that came positive from the pandemic is I started just doing my own cold brews at home, save a little money. That's been nice. But then those funds kind of transferred into me ordering, like you said, more online shopping. I bought like a t-shirt this morning that I know for sure, like in a normal time, I would have seen that and been like, not in the budget, but I like it. But now I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's pull the trigger, impulse buy. But yeah, I see where you're coming from with that.
I heard something on the radio not too long ago saying that, I'm not going to get the numbers right, but that like Amazon's profits have, I forget, it's just something incredible, right? Like, as much as they were making before, it's like doubled or tripled or something. They are not hurting one bit. And as far as our buying, yeah, where, I think this all makes sense to us, that our buying is pretty steady, if not a little higher. It's the experience kind of buys, right, that we're not doing as much because we're not getting to go out to do it as much. But it's interesting to think about that. I just also want to say a quick thing to those of you that are just joining us. We probably should have clarified what we're all talking about from the beginning. So we listened to that podcast that we mentioned in the email, Our Pursuit of Happiness, with the psychologist Elizabeth Dunn. So even if you didn't get a chance to hear it or listen to it or all of it or parts of it as we outlined for you, feel free to ask questions and just in general about, some different issues that we're bringing up related to this podcast. So feel free to chime in. This isn't Psych and Psych Coalition just talking to each other. So please feel welcome to ask questions or raise issues or ask about things.
I know for me, one of the things I'm going to start reallocating funds for are some more memory things. Make a big giant picnic and go somewhere local. We do have a lot of waterfalls and hikes. We do have a lot of beautiful places to go and see, and that definitely has become more of a priority. It'll help in so many ways, now that we've just been stuck at home for so long.
Yeah, that's it. That's actually exactly what I was getting at earlier when I was saying like nothing's going to be done until we just do something. Like that's what a lot of people are having problems with is, feeling cooped up at home, like, oh, there's nothing to do. In reality, there's a lot of stuff you can do. It's just now there's not really an outlet. There's not really like club events, people getting together through some organization to go like do something that would be fun or be a good memory, a positive memory. So instead, what I'm trying to shift my thinking towards is maybe you need to be the organizer. You know what I mean? Maybe you need to be the people who text your circle, text your friend group, your family or whatever, and says, hey, let's do what we need to do. Let's plan, let's go hike. Let's do this on the weekend, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's been years since I've done geocaching, but I think I'm gonna pick that back up. That used to be a lot of fun.
Heard about that. As someone who plans like everything, I've had to kind of learn to be more spontaneous because it's felt like I can't plan anything because everyone has like things to worry about and things to do. But I've worked on being more spontaneous of like having to figure out what to do when you can't go out and like do the typical social things. Like me and my brothers used to do escape rooms all the time, and we can't do that anymore. So we've gone on more hikes than normal. And like Marvine said, there's a lot of waterfalls in North Carolina, and I don't know about y'all, but I love waterfalls. So I think being more spontaneous is also something that helps.
Yeah, in the podcast she was talking about, that's like the benefits of having something during this pandemic, that of having something that's like just for you, like your skill or your hobby or whatever, that you're like, okay, I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to watch myself get better at it. And that'd be one of those goals that you're writing down. So you could say, last month I said, okay, I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to get better at it. You look at that 2 months later and you say, well, I actually did it. Check that off the, you know what I mean? Like that's a little victory that you can celebrate, like we were talking about.
Good point.
Does anyone know like the research surrounding fake it until you make it? Because I was reading an article that was saying that it's not the most like, I don't know, like it's not the greatest thing to do. I don't know. Does anyone know any research around that?
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, well, I think, what was I going to say? I think that's a little bit, I think imposter syndrome, I mean, that would be the downside, right? Imposter syndrome. But I remember from teaching years ago when I was teaching personality, there's a contemporary of Freud's. And I mean, but he was, and I'm just saying that's when apparently they first started using the idea of the phrase that I think they first started using was act as if. So you are happy, act as if you are confident. And right now I'm forgetting, it's on the tip of my brain, the psychologist that came up with it. But I think, Notori, to speak to your point, I think you've got to be really, like, you have to, what do I want to say? You really have to buy into it and do like, and kind of do it the best you can. I think if you're just kind of like, I'm going to act if I'm happy, and you don't really do, you're not very concerted in your effort, I don't know how well that's going to stick, but I think otherwise, if you, act as if I'm confident and really kind of stick with it and wrap your head around it, change your cognitions. I think it's more of a, reframing of your own thoughts, of your own, feelings and how you're acting and that sort of thing. I think in that case, it could make more of a difference, right? So it has to be a concerted effort of act as if, or fake it until you make it. But if you're more on the fake side, you're not going to get there, right? But I mean, Dr. Burke or Professor Burke brings up a important phenomena that I don't know if you've all heard. Do you want to talk to them about imposter syndrome?
Sure. And I think women are actually more affected by imposter syndrome, I think significantly, right, Dr. Chiarella?
I can see that being the case. And unfortunately in the research, but I don't know that the gender difference to it.
Okay. I think I saw that recently, but
yeah.
So imposter syndrome is when you feel doubt about your capabilities in a role. And I can give you a clear example. Out of college, right after undergrad, I don't know if you guys know Teach for America, the program where you go into a Title I school and you teach. And I'll never forget the first day. And I was a psych major. I didn't have, 4 years of education training behind me. I'll never forget my first day. I walk in, there's 35-year-olds looking at me, right? 35-year-olds, 5-year-olds. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not prepared for this. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I thought like they'd all know that I'm an imposter, these 5-year-olds, right? And I was worried about their perception of me. Whenever I give a talk to people, I'm like, I'm the expert. I can't believe that you're all listening to me, right? So it's this feeling that you have doubt in your capabilities, that you shouldn't be where you are. And so I think, Notoria, too, what you're talking about with fake it till you make it, I think they do find oftentimes, if you, like with Dr. Chiarella is saying, if you really do perceive that you can fake it accordingly, right? Like efficiently and effectively, then yes, it helps. I believe so embodiment research, I find this one study interesting, although the replication with social psych hasn't been phenomenal lately, but they had participants hold a pencil with their teeth like this, or with just their lips like this. And so if they held it with their teeth, they were effectively smiling, right? More than if it was just like this. And then they gave them a comic. And I do this every year in my positive psych class when I teach in person. And then we rate, how happy do you feel reading this comic? How funny do you think it is? And almost every single time, more students find it funny if they held their pencil like that, because you're tricking almost your body. So when they say smile because it will help you feel better, there actually may be some truth to that. Do I think, though, that it's warranted? I don't know if we should be feeling happy all the time. So I have trouble with that research with the goal, because I don't think if you're really sad from a breakup that you want to just be happy,
Right. Don't stick a pencil in your mouth after a breakup, kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Sam cream.
Yeah, exactly. Like I studied acetaminophen in grad school, and we're studying its effects on after social rejection. That doesn't mean that you should take acetaminophen when you've been socially rejected. Sadness is okay. So actually I have some issues with happy research, because I don't think it should always be that goal. But I think fake it till you make it, if it's in terms of confidence, sure, right? That's beneficial. I'm not so sure about the happiness side, if that makes any sense. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, and the research that I've seen from way back, I would support exactly what you're saying, and in the sense that it was more about, what do I want to say? More like in kind of increasing your abilities, right? It wasn't about being happy. It was about, like confidence or assertiveness, or your ability to talk, or your ability, to teach to the 5-year-olds. Katie, my God. I had a lot of 5-year-old clients, but never 30 at once.
I really liked how you said the word embodiment. I think that really changed the whole tone of it. I think that was a very important part of it, is embodying what it is that you're trying to be, not just have a facade so that you can't see who you really are. Like, this is who you are really trying to be.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I know I learned that phrase when I was trying to teach myself how to be a good presenter, because presenting always scares me. So I used to research so much about how to get better at it and feel better about it. And even now, even a 5-minute presentation makes my hands sweat and shake, because it just makes me nervous. So that's where I learned fake it till you make it, because of the idea of the body stances you can go through. there's the recommendation of like doing quick exercise to get nervous energy out, or what is it, the Superwoman pose with like your hands on your hips.
No, that's it. I mean, it could be, but it hasn't been replicated. So Kaelyn, I used to tell my students to do that all the time, the Superwoman, like, you know, like shoulders back and chest out, but actually it hasn't been replicated. And so they're actually having issues with it. But Kaelyn, I was the same way. I used to tell everyone the same thing. And in fact, before some of my interviews, I would do that pose too. And I think maybe the placebo effect is powerful, right? So I think it works for me.
I mean, and to me, what would be interesting, who knows, there might be some particular characteristics where it works on some people, but maybe not so much in others or something like. So, I mean, yeah, the jury's kind of still out after all the attention it got. But yeah, I mean, it is that sort of thing. Yeah, that's the same thing with me, that I remember as I was in 6th grade, we had to give oral book reports for 15 minutes, completely memorized. And I remember standing up in front of the class with my little book, just I could feel my whole body shaking as I went through the whole thing. And I finished. And then for the next one, I'm like, this never works this way. But I literally said to myself, I need to get over this. And I you know what I did, I said, I'm not talking to 15, 20, 30 people. I'm talking to one person, one body, right? One body of people. So I'm talking to one body of people. I love talking to one body of people. Whatever. So yeah, after that was like, okay, we're good. You know, I mean, and sure, there's always things I could keep improving on, but at least it got over that super choking, shaking anxiety, right? So yeah, it was just kind of like, I'm going to do this, you know. Oh, I wish the other things in my life would go that quickly, but that one happened to work that way. I don't know.
Well, and I have to say too, Kaelyn, you seem very confident when you speak. So I can never tell. And I think that's another thing. We are thinking about ourselves when we're presenting, but everyone in the audience, they're thinking about themselves when they're going to present, right? Like they're not really thinking about you. And I think that always helps me too. But Kaelyn, I can't tell at all with you, to be honest. Like you seem very confident in everything. So I think sometimes we're too hard on ourselves as well.
Thank you. I am my greatest critic.
Always.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you guys had a good point. What was interesting is I feel like they were pushing, and at least in the podcast, for like being happy all the time. But I liked the research that showed that like even with experiences, like in the moment, you're not focused on how great it's going, but like later on, you look at it like fondly. And it made me think of like past vacations where I've had a horrible time, but like looking back at them, I wouldn't have given them up for the world. So it's just interesting that we can be having a bad time and then later on look back on it fondly.
This podcast kept making me think of this short story that my sister told. She was pregnant and really, really, really wanted pickles very, very bad. Needed these pickles so bad. And the pickle jar fell out of the bag and smashed in front of her. And she said she cried her eyes out. And she's turned this into this amazing, funny story that she tells people and gets everyone to laughing tears with her need for these pickles, this burial she had to get the pickles. And so it is about storytelling. And that's what I think I said at the beginning is I really think that storytelling element is so important, and that sharing it with other people is very important. And as Ricky said, we have to make these things actionable. We've got to decide that we're going to do something, whether it's, go into a Discord, which we do have Discord rooms where UNC students gather and talk. There's other places that they do, and just we need to get out there and make sure that we're doing that.
Another topic I found interesting, just to it's not really a pivot, but she was talking about she with her students in the podcast, she was talking about how she would ask them a lot what an ideal life would look for them, asking your 20-year-old students what they think they'll be doing when they're retired, like that kind of question. And I thought that was pretty fascinating, because they compared that to in a while. It was compared to the person jumping out of a plane without a parachute, aiming for like a little net. It was like in the vast like perspective you have on your whole life and everything going on, being able to focus on one little net in the middle, which is like, you know, your retirement, your end career, whatever, and seeing like their perspective on that. I thought that was an interesting discussion, mainly because I didn't know anybody jumped out of planes without parachutes. I thought it was like guaranteed death, but, but apparently you can just jump out, and I don't know. I thought that was, but either way, I thought that was fascinating. I don't know what you guys think about that, or like your perspective on, you know, something that's going to take place years into the future, and how like your mindset on that now could affect, you know, how it turns out in the end.
That's actually pretty cool. There's this thing in counseling called the miracle question, and that's very similar. It's basically you ask someone, if you could wake up tomorrow and be living your perfect life, what would it look like? And it's like a way of getting people to think about what they want and then slowly start working towards it.
Yeah, that's something I didn't really realize, or maybe I'd realized it but I hadn't thought about that, is like, in order to be positive, or in order to have a positive outlook, or, you know, be motivated, you have to know clearly what it is you're motivated towards, what it is you want to accomplish. That's like the first step. And I think it's easy to get caught up because, you know, there's so many things going on, like life is vast, but it's like easiest to stay motivated if you keep like a pinpoint focus on something, whether it's the near future or it's the distant future. It's always good to keep like a narrow focus.
I know since I was a little girl, I've used thinking of the future as kind of a coping skill. I'm not saying this is great or perfect, and I'm not even necessarily aware. It'd be interesting to find any kind of research about it, but you know, but I do kind of wish college students, and I mean, I think it's a function of age, right? But well, not if I started at a young age, but but I mean, I wish maybe it could be more helpful for some, because you know, as some of you, I just, my heart just tears and breaks because I can just see you like, and this exam, and I don't want to get a B+ and blah, blah, blah. And all, you know, I mean, and it just seems so big, right? And I mean, I get it, but I mean, I just kind of want to say like, it's, you know, give yourself a break, right? Give yourself a break. That is not, in the grand scheme of things, that's not that big, right? I know it feels big in the moment, but it's not that big. It really, you know, I often say to students in kind of a flippant way, you know, they'll say my grades are this or that or blah, 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 what I major in. I'm like, it doesn't matter. And I just do that kind of mess with you a little bit and give you that sense of like, you know, there's greater qualities or issues that are more important to work on in a way, and can kind of give you that sense of perspective. I think that a lot of times we're missing when we're all focused in too much, especially on the present, some of those present things that, you know, we want to change or we don't feel like are quite good enough. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how I even started doing that. I think my parents might have done that because my mother was often gone while she was getting her PhD, and it was this idea of seeing mommy and, you know, the delay of gratification kinds of things. And I don't know, but I mean, you know, it takes me out. Sometimes I need to be taken out of the moment, right? I know a lot of people are talking about being in the moment, but what often spirals me is I'm too deep in the moment and I need to come out, and it's going to be okay. And I don't really need to worry about it that much, right? Now, my dance is that I got to be careful when I look to the future. I don't start worrying too much about that. My anxiety likes driving me around, right? So no, I don't know about that. Nobody knows about that. And we're not gonna, you know, we can't go too far down. I have to think of pleasant. If I think of pleasant future things, that's the coping skill. If I start thinking of the future too much of something that's making me nervous now, then that's a total spiral, you know, but I think it's an interesting balance to play, you know.
For me, it's like, if like a short-term goal would be, you know, to do well on an exam. But if I don't do well on that exam, am I really straight off my path, like so greatly that it should make me freak out about everything? You know, like you don't, not everything's going to be a victory for you in the near term necessarily, but that doesn't mean that you're completely, you know, derailed. Kind of just like keeping a greater perspective.
And you know, my failures have taught me more, and I know this is cliche, but it's so true. My failures in life have taught me more about who I am and about life than any of my victories. And so I look back, you know, I was like all of you too. I was in Psych and I wanted all A's and I needed to get all A's. And then I studied abroad in Paris and I get there and I'm like, I thought I knew French. I did not know French. I got there, I was like, "La, la, 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 la. What did you just say?" And so in all of my classes, they were 3 hours long with just French the whole time. And honestly, guys, I was like, should I go home? Because I'm going to fail all my classes. And let me tell you, that semester, I did not get all A's. It dropped my GPA. I thought I was going to die. I thought I wasn't going to grad school. I thought life was going to end, right? No, actually, that experience was one of the most wonderful, amazing experiences I've ever had because it pushed me, it challenged me. And yeah, I did fail in many ways. And now I think I'm a better person because, and that's just one of my many failure situations in life. You know, there's many. And so that's also why I'm not so much for happiness, because those failing opportunities taught me meaning, right? What I should be looking at in life that's more important. So to talk about what you're saying, Ricky, I think is a really good idea too, to hold on to those small goals. And when they don't happen, that's okay. Look at your long-term. My long-term goal has always been inner peace. And so if I fail in this one place, that's okay, right? Because my main goal is still, you know, there. And I think we have to focus on the important future goals, like you were saying, Dr. Chiarella, too, like the pleasant ones that are more meaningful too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, again, just a little kind of simple research coming from Erickson and his study of identity in adolescence, right? He really emphasized trying to keep balance in looking at your positive possible selves, right? And your feared selves, right? So, I mean, because he said, you know, and the reason for the balance was exactly that. If you didn't get to your ideal, who you exactly wanted to be, at least you could kind of say, well, wait a minute, let me give myself some grace, right? Some wiggle room. At least I'm not all the way to this person that I would fear to be, right? Mm-hmm. So I like perspectives that offer balance, right? So, and I mean, not easier said than done, but at least gives us, like I say, a little bit of personal wiggle room for those of us, and I know there are many of us among us that kind of drive ourselves to keep doing, you know, whatever it is we're doing to the fullest of our ability, you know. So we need to give ourselves a break when we can too.
That's a cool point too that you brought up, about like how especially right now, it's easy to, like, you know, want to stay in your comfort zone, but like a lot of beneficial things can come from challenging yourself and even failing, because it'll let you know that, you know, failure is not the end of the world, but you can grow from that experience.
100%.
I strongly second Katie's study abroad or any travel experience, or really, again, like you're saying, Ricky, anytime you're pushed out of your comfort zone, you really you're really getting a gut check, or you really should kind of go with that gut check and kind of evaluate, what am I getting out of this, instead of just, you know, swimming down the hole of, I'm doing this wrong, this isn't working out, that kind of thing. I mean, which may be your first kind of gut impulses, but what can you see past that, right? So yeah. And I mean, even in these limited times of, you know, like I'm not traveling right now and doing all those places I like to go. I got a paddleboard this summer, okay, you know, as we were talking about before, and so I'm paddleboarding, right? You know, that's a little out of my comfort zone because I don't know. I mean, I still like a lot about it, but I mean, it's not something I would do regularly, you know, but I'm doing it. So, you know, you can still find ways to kind of put yourself in new experiences.
I still hope we can go to South Africa though at some point. Maybe.
I've been telling you, yeah, that would have been so good. This is all over, we'll reunite for making it happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I think studying abroad just kind of widens your worldview. Like it's hard just to get outside of the day-to-day attitude. Like I know that's how I live. I live day to day, especially with my calendar being so full. But studying abroad just kind of makes you realize how big the world is and how much there is out there, and it makes you feel small, but kind of in a good way. But I know I am a creature comfort person and I love my comfort zone. So it's hard to get out of it and it can be really scary. Studying abroad is like the biggest thing I've done. But I don't know. I think I like what Professor Burke said about learning from your failures. I think it's hard in the moment. Like I know I've failed classes before, and while I was failing them, I was not happy, but I know the next semester I kind of dusted myself off and figured out what I could do to fix it and learned from it the next time. So I think it's just that idea of when you're in the moment, it kind of sucks and you're focused on the bad. But when you look back on it, you can kind of learn from it and focus on the positives.
I've always seen one true like takeaway from the majority of failures, and that's no matter if you fail or not, you're gonna be all right. You're still here. You still wake up the next day. Your life didn't end right then and there. I think to me, being open to many situations, challenges, and experiences now, to me in the past, and realizing like, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, that's true. You've made it through 100% of your bad days. That's what I like to remind myself.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Yeah, it's about perseverance in the end. It's about continuing, and it makes you a stronger perseverer. So that's a good thing, because then when other failures come, like I know I can relate with Marvine too, and anyone else who here is a parent. You know, when I first became a mom, it was like failure, right? Like one after the other, like what's happening? But then I looked back at my life and I was like, you know what? I overcame those other failures. I can overcome these failures too. So I like what you're saying, Ethan and Kaelyn and everyone, you know, what you are all saying. I think that's true. It makes you stronger. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger in the end.
We're calling this thing. Are we almost at an hour?
Yeah, I was gonna say before we wrap it up, any other last comments, questions? Alrighty, well, I just want to say thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Professor Burke and Dr. Chiarella, and thank you to Psych Coalition for collaborating with us. Hope you guys had a good time discussing.
Yeah,
the
this has been
podcast.
cool. I wrote a lot of stuff down.
Yeah, it was a really good discussion. So let me see. I'm gonna stop recording.